everyone, welcome to Soul Food. My name is Ryan. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a bechamel sauce or a white sauce for your pastas. It's fairly simple, but it takes a little bit of practice to get it right. You may not get it right the first time. So for the sauce we're going to need is the base, which is the liquid, and we're going to use milk for this one. And it needs a thickening agent, which is a combination of flour, which is plain flour, and butter. So let me take you through the process. To make the roux, we're going to need approximately 2 tablespoons of butter. You can also use margarine or any other kind of fat that you want to use that may be low in cholesterol. So that's approximately 2 tablespoons of butter, if this ever comes up. I'm going to turn this on. We're also going to need is 2 tablespoons of plain flour. So I'm using a measure just to show you how this turns out. You want to turn down the heat, even if you're using a stove top. You don't want to burn this. So give it a good mix. Now a roux comes in 3 forms. There is a white roux, which we're going to make for a white sauce. There is a blonde roux used for other sauces, and there is a brown roux which is used for a brown sauce, which is also known as an espagnole. Now normally it's equal parts of fat, which is the butter, and equal parts of flour, but I like to kind of eyeball it a little bit because I don't like my roux to be very thin in consistency. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to kind of get the consistency that I like. I think that's much better. I like to get almost like a sandy texture to it. Now what we're trying to do over here is cook the flour. You don't want a floury tasting sauce because that's like the worst. So you want to cook this and, you know, like wet sand kind of texture. When it reaches that, you know you're pretty much done. Keep breaking up the flour and the fat because you want the heat to permeate through all the molecules of the flour. Always remember to do this on a simmer or a low flame. You don't want a high flame because you don't want to scorch anything. You want to keep it cooking for a longer period of time till it turns into a nutty brown, and that will give you your brown sauce base. So this is still for white sauce. Now when I say white, a white roux, obviously it's a little palish yellow in color because of the flour and the butter, but it's still known as a white roux and not a blonde roux. A blonde roux is a little deeper in color. So I think that's pretty much done. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to transfer this to another plate and let it cool down almost to room temperature and take it to the next step. Okay, so now it's time to make the sauce. I've got the roux which I put in the plate, which is cooling down right now, and I'm going to pour 1 liter of milk into the same pan. So we want to bring this milk to a boil. Make sure that you don't scotch the edges. You keep stirring. You want to see it starting to bubble at the corners. As you can see, it's starting to build up some steam. It's going to be close enough to reach its boiling point. When that happens, I'm going to reduce the temperature. So the same thing you want to do on the gas tops is reduce it down to the lowest. The milk has almost come up to a boil. I've reduced the heat down to a simmer. And now we're going to start thickening the sauce, for which we're going to start adding the roux. So you want to add the roux and keep stirring constantly so that you have no lumps form. This is a bit of a slow process, but it's very important because otherwise you get lumps in your sauce. And even if that does happen, all you got to do at the end of this anyway is strain it through a sieve. Now to season this, you typically use salt, of course. So I'm going to do that right now. And you're supposed to use white pepper, but I like using black pepper because I like the flavor personally. And now comes for the fun part. You need about half an onion, a small bay leaf, and a clove. So what we're going to do is we're going to puncture this bay leaf with the clove into the onion as is. It's not necessary you have to do that, but it looks really cool. And we want to put this inside and let it boil. So I'm going to let this simmer for about 7 to 10 minutes. Keep stirring occasionally. Make sure that it doesn't stick to the edges, it doesn't scorch, and there are no lumps. And we'll be right back. Now this has been simmering for about 5 minutes, and I'll explain to you what is the doneness that you need for a good bechamel sauce. And if you dip your spoon in, you see this little film that forms over it, and if you run through, it should stay. The mark should stay, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for this much of a thickness on the spoon itself. Now to this, if you add cheese, any cheese of your choice, typically it's Gruyère and Parmesan, but if you can even add any cheddar that you have in your fridge, and that will make a Mornay sauce or a cheese sauce, and that goes really well with your pastas and your lasagnas. I think this sauce is pretty much done, and all we're going to do is pour this out into another bowl. So it picks up any of the lumps and of course the onion. As you can see in there, you still have residual lumps of the roux which haven't been mixed in, which is fine because you achieved what you wanted to. Now to finish off the bechamel, while it was on heat, ideally I should have added a tablespoon or so of butter, which I'm doing now. It doesn't really matter, and I'll show you why. If I hadn't added the butter, you typically get this film, as you can see, and you want to avoid that under all circumstances. But if it's there, it doesn't matter. All you do is just give it a nice mix. The butter will melt. Now to store this sauce, you put it into an airtight container and pour melted butter over the top. That will prevent from the film to form. And you can keep this in your refrigerator for a couple of days. I'm going to ladle in about 1 spoon, or rather 2 ladles of the tomato sauce that we made in the last video. I'm going to drop down the heat a little bit. Maybe you can use a little bit more. Oh, that's lovely. And I'm going to ladle in some of the bechamel that we just made. Maybe a little more. We're just eyeballing this because there's no science to this, so there's no perfect recipe to this. I'm just trying to show you what we can do with the 2 sauces that you learned in yesterday's video and today's video. And there, you can see this pale pinkish orangish tinge to it, and that's your tomato creme. Now if I'd made a Mornay sauce out of the bechamel, I could have still done the same thing. You would have had a cheesy tomato sauce. Look at that. It's so beautiful, it's so simple. Kids are gonna love it. You're gonna love it. If you're entertaining people, everybody's gonna love it. And these 2 sauces should always be in your refrigerator. You know, make it week on and week out because you can use it for almost anything. Okay, so I've made the pasta with the tomato creme. I could have done the same with the bechamel. I could have done the same with the tomato. Now for any pasta, you can add in whatever you like, any types of meats that you like, any types of vegetables that you like, saute everything, put it all together, it tastes really fantastic. If I dropped in some fresh arugula into this or some fresh baby spinach, this would have tasted beautiful. Now here's another trick that they do in restaurants, which no one ever tells you, is that before you serve any dish, any pasta dish that has a sauce, or anything that has a sauce, you finish it off with a little bit of butter, and that just adds to the creaminess, the glaze, that beautiful glaze that you get to see in a restaurant, you wonder why at home your sausages look very dry and boring, is because of butter. Trust me, it's a French thing, they love doing it. And I'm going to show you how good this tastes. Look at that. Beautiful spaghetti in a tomato cream. Now, who wouldn't come back for more? And thank you for watching Soul Food. My name is Ryan, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.